Welcome to Module 5 of SAAS Mastery. Here we're going to start looking at the design phase, and we're going to talk through some successful design tips. We have a few lessons in this module: creating a project plan, creating a design document, and some development acceleration tips and tricks that we've accumulated over the years. So we could just jump right in. So creating a project plan, every project that you have should have some sort of a project plan mapped out. And what a project plan is a map to show you here is how we get from where we are today to the end state of a finished product. And I say finished product, it could be your proof of concept, it could be your MVP, it could even just be phases after that, like here's our enhancement phase 1 or phase 2, to quote some of the examples that we had before. So we want to look at the tasks that are required and who is responsible for those tasks, because what we want to do here is we want to have a roadmap, but we also want to have an accountability map so that we know that the right people are accountable for their tasks. Now, just keep in mind that at this stage of the game, it's still early in the project. You may not know every single thing that needs to be done and by who, and things come up all the time. And just know that that's okay. You can iterate over this project plan over time, and the purpose is for it to be a living, breathing document where by the end you have a full picture of here's everything that was done, by resource. If we slipped on our timeline, here's where we slipped and why we slipped. It's going to give you that full picture of your project health. Now, questions I often get asked are, well, what do I track on this project plan? How granular do I need to get in terms of the detail? So again, you may not have all the detail right now, but you certainly should be tracking phases like our design phase, our build phase, test phase, deploy. And you may not know the exact details. So for example, we're building a web app. How many screens is it going to have? You're not necessarily going to put in there, design screen 1, design screen 2, design screen 3, because if you don't know how many screens you're going to have, you don't know how many items to put in the project plan. If you're doing database development, how many tables you're going to have, how many calculations, all that kind of stuff. That's, going to be clearer after the design phase is done. But you should be able to have a category within there. So what do I mean by that? Well, within your design phase, you're going to design the user interface, right? So you don't have to get down to say design the 10 screens that we're going to have, but you should have a section for UI design. You should have a section for application logic design. So what's the logic going to be that's inside the application? If you have a backend database over there, you'll design that. Maybe in that design document, which we'll talk through successful designs in the next lecture, you'll have things like what are all the tables I need and so forth. When it comes to testing, make sure that you have time allocated to creating a test plan, so mapping out all the tests that are going to be needed. Again, you're not going to know how many tests are going to be needed now, but you should be able to account for we're going to spend 2 days or 3 days just mapping out all the tests that we're going to need to execute. And then the actual execution of the test. So again, you don't have to say execute test 1, execute test 2, because you're not going to know that, but there should be time allocated for executing all the tests that you have. These dates can be refined over time as you go through. You can say, hey, it's going to take a week to do my design, and maybe it takes 2 weeks, and that's okay. Over the course of a project, you're going to recognize that you may not be 100% accurate on, any one task or any one, phase even, but what you'll find is in some areas you're going to be able to make up time. In other areas, maybe the time can't be made up, and it's part of, what's considered the critical path. So what are the, necessary steps to do in order to complete your complete your project. And in others, you may say, well, we're waiting for access to a server, let's just say, so we can't do task A. So in the meantime, we're going to do task B. So maybe you didn't slip in terms of the timeline because there are other tasks you were able to jump to. So you want to make sure that you're tracking that, and the more of these that you do, you'll start to get a better feel for, what are the key things that tend to slip, and what are the key things that maybe go faster than what you envision. Now, the other thing you want to make sure you're tracking are the dependencies between the different tasks. So if I can't do task B until task A is completed, you want to make sure that you have notes of those kinds of things. And you also want to make note of who is responsible for each task. That way, if something does slip, here is, who is accountable for it, but also just as you're gathering updates over the course of the project, you want to make sure that you have a point person for each item that's being worked on so that you can get a proper status update. And we're going to talk about status updates in the build module over here, but this is just, at a bare minimum, this is what you should be tracking. Now, there's software out there to help you with project management. Some of these will range in price, like Microsoft Project, for example, is fairly expensive. But you could do something like this as simply as, an Excel document or, Google Doc or, something like that. And we'll make a resources sheet for you, just outlining some of the more program here, some more detail around each of these programs and how they can help you.